Okay, hopefully this is now recording, I hope. So I'm going to start this one again. Okay. When I heard Stacy's doing a miniature event, this is the first thing that came into my mind, is the miniatures I have done. Now these little doll dresses, they measure 1/4 of an inch. And I made these quite a few years ago. I was doing doll houses and making porcelain dolls and stuff like that. I'd made, you know, bigger dolls, but then I got into the little dolls. So this is one of them. This one I called Emily, and she's very Victorian. She has tons of ringlets, and I made her, and I made her dress, made her hair and the ribbon in her hair and everything, like right from scratch. And she's got lace on the front of her dress here that you can see. Everything's in miniature. We have a wonderful miniature store here in Victoria, and they have lots of stuff like that you can do like this. So anyway, this is the little doll that I did, and I did do some other dolls. I did a little Victorian sailor boy. That was given to my oldest son, who's 1 minute older than the other one, because he was in the Navy. And then I did, I had a surgery for a ruptured ovary that almost killed me, but it landed me in bed for quite a long time after the surgery. And I was going out of my mind because I really, really wanted to create something and I couldn't get up. So I had my son, you know, go through my stuff for me, bring me a sketch pad, and then I, you know, got him to bring me certain fabrics that I had and stuff like that. And I ended up creating Merlin the Magician for my daughter, with the wand and the beard and the whole thing. He was all done in royal blue. And I think you can see Fred creeping in here right now. He's 9 months old, and Fred thinks that everything I have belongs to him. And he looks like a giant compared to all that small stuff. Nico's good. Nico went to bed, you know, like, so I don't have to worry about him. I keep trying to get Fred to go, but Fred's not about to right at the moment. I think Fred's waiting to see what's happening. I've been trying to get him to think that I'm not going to do anything so that he'll just take off and go to bed with Nico, so looks like he might just have done that. That'll be great. He'll be out of my way. Anyway, those are the dolls I created, and that's what made me, you know, that made me think that kind of miniature. So I have created this little tiny envelope, and it's, what did I say it was, 1.5 inches, I think, or no, 1 1/4 inches by almost 3/4 of an inch, not quite. And then it has a little note that can go inside of it so that your dolly can send another dolly a note. And I have some other things here on my table. I'm going to see if I can find my good X-Acto knife here, because the one that I have I don't like. Oh, here it is. And I'm just going to finish cutting this out, and then put this together. Oh, don't do that to me. And then I can put it. Oh, you dumb thing. Oh, well, it still will work anyway. So with this one, what I want to do is I'm just, because my cutting blade has a scoring blade on it, I'm just gonna, on my cutting board right here, I'm just gonna score it on here instead of pulling out the big scoreboard. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold it in half on the score. I think. Give it a little bit of a press here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, you know, two of the sides with my glue and just glue it down. I don't want a whole ton of glue, I just want enough to make it stick. There. Now I'm going to fold that up. Get those. There's extra glue, I'll pull it off. This, oh, and I got the back of it wrong. Okay, well, there. Move it up a little bit. It's not going to work. Okay, we went off the score line somehow here, so let's just... That's a good thing that... I always thought it was a good thing when I was teaching that my students saw me make mistakes so that they would know that I'm not perfect either. You know, I do make mistakes and I do have to correct them, and, you know... none of us are perfect, so I don't want you to get the idea that I am, because I'm not. Far from it. I always say I'm perfectly imperfect, you know, and that's me. Now the other thing that I want to do with this is I'm going to take little tiny bits of a cotton ball, and where are my tweezers? They should be right here. Maybe I put them back where they belong. I did. Yeah, there. So what I'm going to do with these tiny little bits, open up this little bag, and I'm going to push down in little pieces of the cotton. You don't need to put like a whole lot in there. I mean, it's just to give it some dimension, basically, so that it looks like there's chocolate chips in there, and you can make me some cookies. Got my fingers. So I just took 3 little bits. I think that should be enough. I'll just push it down from the edge here, and then I'm going to take glue and just run it along the inside here. And then I will, did I get down there? It's hard to see. Looks like it did. There. And then I will just glue that up. And if there's any loose pieces of the cotton batting in there, it just looks like you can just cut it off. I'm just going to hold it for a second to let it, you know, adheres properly. And then we have a little box of, or a little bag, pardon me, of chocolate chips. So they are, that measures, let's see, and that's taking into account the puff too. That's about 1 3/4 inches by 3/4 inches. So, you know, it's dollhouse size. Could be smaller in a dollhouse too. I don't know, you know, if, let's see, which way do I go? This way. I don't know if any of you do dollhouse stuff, but I mean, miniature to me, that's what it meant. And I was like, oh, I can do miniature. I've been doing miniature for a long time with different things. And then I have found seed packets. I mean, because these are so tiny, I mean, you could even add them to a junk journal. I mean, if you go on my Pinterest page, I mean, you can copy and save as, and then print them out to, you know, basically whatever size you want. I just wanted to do tiny to, you know, show you that miniature is miniature. I love little teeny tiny things like this, and I used to have a beautiful doll collection, and I made dolls for my granddaughters for their birthdays and special occasions. I have one doll that I have left. She's called Sugar Britches, and I have two outfits. I use Sugar Britches as a model to make a wardrobe for my granddaughter before she was born, and nobody knew, except me, I guess, that she was a girl. Everybody kept saying, oh, it's a boy, and I was like, no, 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 it's a girl. And I have done that with every single one of my grandchildren. I've known what they were before they were born, even though my kids never had the ultrasounds done and asked, you know, what the child was going to be. They didn't really want to know. And then they would all argue with me about what I said, and in the end I was always right. So, you know, Mama knows best. I even had a fight with a nurse when I actually delivered my first granddaughter in the hospital. The doctor just kind of stood back and let me do it because he knew I wanted to, and he was fantastic. He was really cool about it. So he let me deliver her. And my daughter was the only woman on Vancouver Island at the time who had toxoplasmosis during her pregnancy. And so the doctors had a ton of stuff that they had to do after the baby was born. They had to take tests every minute, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, and all these other different tests. They had to test the umbilical cord and, you know, test the placenta and all that. So he was busy doing his stuff, and I was busy doing mine. And I got to deliver her, I got to cut her cord, and it was really magical. And she and I have had such a bond all our lives. And then a couple of years ago, the little fart made me a great-grandmother. So I have a great-grandson. He's going to, let's see, in April he will turn 3, I believe. So, yeah, they do that to you. You know, you think it's all over, but it's not. Never is. But babies are a wonderful thing. I love babies. There, so now we have, and I haven't glued anything. This is a little teeny tiny seed packet. Now it's real small. So let's see if I can get a measurement even off of it. It's 1/4 inch by, oh geez, by maybe 5/8, 1/2 inch. Yeah, maybe about 5/8 wide. So, I mean, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. I don't know if any of you are going to want to have all these little teeny tiny things, but, I mean, they can be added to your junk journals, you know. Now, I can do the same thing that I had done with the Nestles. I could add a tiny little bit of just cotton batting inside just to give it a little tiny twist, or I could add little shaker beads or something, but I don't want anything spilling out on anybody anywhere, so that sort of scares me. But I will glue this one down here. Where did I put that? get quiet when I'm concentrating, don't I? Yeah, I think we all do. It's like, okay, gotta get that in the right place. There. I'll just hold it for a second. I'm gonna kind of open it up here. I guess I should do the bottom because that's going to be good. Another one here someplace, and it seems to have this. Oh, there it is. Oh, Fred's back. I didn't think he'd stay away too long. He never does. While he's doing something, I gotta figure out how. What's she doing? Sorry, but you have a nice orange cat in front of you now. Here comes his tail. So I just want just a little tiny bit. You get out of the glue, Fred. Get out of there. Not for Fred. No, not for Fred. No. No, and that's not for Fred either, so you just stay out of it. I think Fred wants to be a crafter too, because he's always very, very interested. As soon as I sit at this table, he's just like right there, wanting to know what's going on. Why am I here instead of paying attention to him and all sorts of stuff. But he's a lovey. He loves to cuddle, and at night if I'm laying on that couch watching Netflix or something, he comes up and he puts his head on my shoulder and just gives me cuddles, and then he'll put his head up to my chin, and that means he wants 3 kisses in a row. Can't be 1, can't be 2, it has to be 3. And so I give him 3 kisses on the head, and then he gives me another cuddle, and he starts to purr, and, you know, he's quite content. And then he curls up in my arm and goes to sleep, and, you know, he'll sleep there for a while. And it always puts me to sleep. Like, do you know how many times I've had to rewatch Netflix, a show on Netflix, because Fred put me to sleep, and now I gotta wake up and start all over again. Look how baby cakes, you're on Mummy's knife, and I don't want you getting hurt. There. What did Mommy do with the top? Oh, there it is. Yes. You can look, but you don't touch nothing, okay? You don't touch nothing. That's a good boy. So the other thing that I've got on my miniature page, just going to cut one of these out, are Beatles albums. I can't remember if I saved some of the other albums or not, but there possibly could be more than just these ones. I used to have a ton of stuff in miniature, and used to make up a lot of stuff, like make perfume bottles and things like that. And that's pretty easy to do. I don't. No, Fred, I don't need your help. Thank you very much. So, what I'm going to do first, let's make sure. See, Fred doesn't like to let me be in camera. You know, he's going to take over the show. So, I'll cut these out. No, Fred, this is Mommy's job. This is Mommy's job, babe. You can watch, but you can't touch. Maybe he thinks I'm going too slow. I don't know. I will cut out 2 of the records, and I'm going to back them to each other. I mean, because an LP is always, you know, it's not white on one side. They're always, you know, LPs used to be, you know, black on both sides, so they had music on both sides. So that's what we want. So I will do that. No, Fred, this is for Mom, not you. You stay out of stuff. As long as you're a good boy and you don't touch anything, I'll let you sit there for a bit. Okay? Go to sleep. No, that's garbage, Fred. It's not for you. Not for you, baby. So we'll... Oh, I got off camera, didn't I? Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, and then I'm going to just take the other record and try to get them to match up as best I can. I may have to do some trimming, but, you know. So there we have a little teeny tiny record. I think that I need a tiny bit of trimming on one side, so I will do that. Just to get it there. So whoever receives this, if you get a square record, blame Fred, will you? He's very, very interested in what's going on here. No, you can't have chocolate chips. They're not good for you. Yeah, they're not good for you. Now, I may do some other things, too, that aren't quite so small. I know that a lot of this is really, really tiny and might not be to everybody's, you know, taste, but I just thought I would go ahead and do these because I have them, and, you know, I'll do some... You know, I have a ton of, from being a teacher, I still have a lot of my supplies. I think I have more supplies than I have anything else in my house, and I have turned my living room, because I live alone, so it doesn't matter, I turned my living room into my craft room. I have a couch and a coffee table that are the only things that make it seem like it's actually a living room. And I'm off screen again because Fred is in the way. Okay. But then, you know, like I like to craft and I like to paint. For a while I had all my, you know, my easel and all that kind of stuff set up out here, and then I was like, no, Fred. No, and you can't have that either. Okay, you're gonna have to get down now. Down you go. Now you guys watch, he'll be back here within 2 seconds, trust me. He doesn't take no very well, this guy. But he's fun. I love him. When he starts to play, he's hilarious. I mean, he does the Halloween dance real well. Like, and he's just playing. I mean, he's not doing, and he'll play by himself. And then the other cat will come out and start chasing him around the place, and then the two of them go. They've got kind of a NASCAR track set up between the two of them, around the front room, around the kitchen, into the bedroom, and back out again, and, you know, up into the windows, and, yeah, see, told you he'd be right back. Yeah. I've been doing this all morning. I've been trying to get this, you know, to be able to tape this video. Because of him, I haven't been able to get anything accomplished because he kept jumping up and not letting me. Okay, so how we got you kind of off. Let's bring you back. There. So I'm gonna just twist my chair so that maybe I can stay in focus here. And keep him out of focus. I just got these bottles from AliExpress. They just arrived yesterday, and I just love them. because getting a thin bead of glue has always been so hard. I just love these. I'm going to have to order some more when I can afford it. But that's the big problem, being able to afford things that you just don't have the money for. You know, like I'm on a very small disability pension, just kind of like Kelly Rickman. Here in Canada they give you something called Safer to help pay your rent, because, I mean, my rent is more than I actually get on my disability, and my rent's going up in October. So as my rent goes up, Safer goes up to compensate it, but you know, it's still after, like, I have both cats. Nico is the third in a line of therapy cats that I've had, and therapy cats, like my first one, his name was Dallas, and he lived for 19 years, and they always have to be in pairs because they teach each other. And so with Dallas I had Jocko, and then my son found a ragdoll kitten. She was only, God, she must have only been 4 or 5 weeks old, but somebody had dumped them down by the shipyard area, and he only found her, and he put up notices everywhere trying to find her owner, and nothing, so he kept her. And he called her China after the wrestler. And then he got sent to boot camp, so Grandma got to look after her. And then, or no, his girlfriend looked after her that time, and she ended up having her first litter of kittens while he was gone. And they were cute. And then he came home from boot camp, and he got sent to Afghanistan within just a matter of a month or so, and he got sent to Afghanistan. And he asked me if I would look after China while he was gone. And, you know, I had looked after her a few other times while he was gone on short trips, and I said, yeah, I'll look after her, but I said, under one condition. And he goes, what? And I said, this time she stays here with me. She doesn't come back to you, because I said, that's not good for her. You know, she's, you know, going back and forth. She doesn't know where she belongs. She needs to be stable. And so he agreed. So I had China from the time she was about 8 months old until she passed away 3 years ago at 15. And Nico, like Dallas and Jocko had passed away, and Jocko and China were just so close. Like, they were like little lovers. They were everywhere together. They bathed each other and, you know, slept together. I mean, Nico would have to fall asleep or Jocko fell asleep in the palm of my hand every night, put his head in my hand and went to sleep. And then I guess he waited for me to go to sleep, and then he went curled up with China, because he thought I'd be jealous, I don't know. But they were always together. And I mean, Dallas taught Jocko how to be a therapy cat. Jocko taught China. And then when the older cats passed away and all I had left was China, she started to mourn so badly that she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't drink. I was, you know, trying to feed her by syringe and get water into her by syringe. And I finally called the vet and said, I just don't know what to do. You know, how can I help her? And she said, you need to get her another cat. And I was like, oh God, I don't know if I'm up for that right yet. And she said, well, if you don't, she's going to die. And I was like, okay. And at the time I was an apartment manager, and I was managing 10 apartment blocks for a company here in town. And I thought, well, you know, I guess I'll have to go to the SPCA and, you know, adopt a cat. And, you know, like I said to them, do I get a cat the same age as her? Do I get a cat that's older, or what? And they went, no, get her a kitten. And I was like, what? They're like, get her a kitten because she'll take to a kitten faster because she has been a mama cat. And I'm like, oh, okay. So anyway, one night I was in a mall that we have here. It's called the Hillside Mall. And I was doing something for one of the buildings in the mall. I had to go grab something, and I was running down the aisle, and there happened to be a pet store in that building, in the aisle I was, you know, the main aisle I was running down. And as I was coming past the pet store, something moved and caught my eye, and I was like, the hell was that, right? So I stopped, and I looked, and there was this little teeny tiny black and white kitten, which just broke my heart because Dallas was black and white. And so I went into the pet store, you know, forgetting all about why I was there. I went into the pet store and said, is that the only kitten that you have? And she said, he is. He's the last one. And I said, and it is a male then? And she goes, yeah, because they had told me to get her a male. And I just went, can I have a look at him? And she's like, okay. So she puts him in my hand, and I mean, he was like this, just this tiny, tiny little thing. And he turned around in my hand when I was looking at him and licked my nose. And I was like, oh, God, I'm done, you know? So I just looked at her and I said, I'll take him. And 20 minutes later, he was in my house, and whatever I was doing for work was totally forgotten. And he was in a little box when I brought him in, just a little teeny tiny box, and I put the box on the floor and I opened it up, and China was looking at me, and she's like, what are you doing? And she was tipping her head from side to side, and then all of a sudden this little guy poked his head out of the box, and she's like, what the hell did you do? You know? And she tried to get close to him, and he just bolted out of the box and started running around the room. And I had like a 5-foot cat thing that they could climb on and stuff at the time, and he went running up that thing, and she just sat staring at him and looking at me like, are you out of your mind, Mom? You know, but she kept trying to get close to him that first week, and every time she'd get just about to him, he'd do the Halloween hunch and jump sideways at her. And so she just would shake her head and walk away, kind of thing. And then one day she was sound asleep on my bed, and he had curled up in my arm and was sound asleep. And I thought, I wonder. And I went and I took him and I laid him behind her on the bed. And she lifted her head, she looked at him, she put her head back down and went to sleep. And from that moment on, the two of them were never separated. They were together all the time, and he would play with her. He even nursed, which really freaked me out because I didn't know that that could happen, and I had to phone the vet and say, is this normal? She said, oh, totally normal. She said, just don't let him do it for too long. Well, you know, that was harder said than done, but as a kitten, it was like whenever he was tired, he would go to her, and he would nurse, and then he would fall asleep, and, you know, they were adorable together. They just loved each other so much. And then she died 3 years ago, and poor Nico's, he was just so lonely, and I couldn't stand it, having him that lonely. So I started, you know, keeping my eyes out for another kitten, because, you know, I was going by what the vet had told me with China, you know, get a kitten, then they'll get along. And you know, I wanted to find a female kitten, even though Nico was fixed, and I thought maybe he'd get along better with a female because China was female. But no, I had a hell of a time. I mean, I went to one place, they wanted $750 for a kitten. And I was like, are you insane? $750 for a kitten? It's not even a purebred anything, it's just a kitten. And they're like, yeah, that's the price. And I'm like, well, not for me, I can't afford that. And then I got a Facebook message from a friend of mine who said, are you ready to have a kitten by December the 24th? And that was this year. And I said, you bet I am. And she said, okay, I'll get right back to you. So she got back to me and gave me the name and phone number of the lady who had the kittens, and the mother cat had had 7 kittens, and they ranged from gray to tabby to orange, and Jocko was an orange tabby. And I couldn't go to the house. There was some reason why I couldn't go to her house. Something about her boyfriend had all these big dogs or something. I don't know. Maybe her house was just a mess or something. But anyway, we talked on the phone, and she said, you know, I said, well, what exactly are the kittens like? Do you have a favorite? And she's like, yeah, she said, my favorite is, he was the last one born, and he is the smallest out of all of the kittens. And she said, he is so tiny, he barely fits in the palm of my hand. And I said, okay, that's the one I want. And I said, is he gray, orange, tabby, what? She said, no, he's an orange tabby. And I said, okay, that's fine. So I met her where she worked on December the 23rd and picked him up. And like I said to her, do you know if it's a male or a female? She said, I don't know. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll find that out when I get him. And so when I first got him, I actually thought he was a female. But he was so little, it was hard to tell. So for a week he was called Freya. And Nico liked that name because it sounded a lot like China. And that's what I always tried to do, is give the new one a name that's similar, but not quite the same as the past. And then they adapt easier because the name sounds the same. And but he took to Fred right away. I mean, they just became like instant friends. They were playing within a couple of days, and you know, I had to keep telling Nico to be careful because Fred was so tiny. But Fred followed Nico everywhere he went. Wherever Nico went, Fred was right there. And they slept together, everything. So it was fun, you know, to have him. And then he's such a little character, especially when he was a baby. He was just nuts. And I've seen there was times where Nico would sit and look like, are you insane, guy? But we love him. And when I discovered that he was a boy, my father died, my stepfather, who I loved with all my heart. He died in 2013. And I had named my oldest son my dad's first name, and then he named his first son my dad's second name, his last name. And I had always said that, you know, if I got a male kitten, that I wanted to call him Fred, after my dad, because my dad's middle name was Frederick. So his actual name is Frederick, but he is called Fred around here. Unless he's in trouble, then he's called Frederick, or Freddy Rick, and he knows that means he has to stop what he's doing, you know, so, but that's very rare, few and far in between. But, so anyway, whoops, stop, silly Lynn, what are you doing? I'm scoring the little marks, just so that it's a little easier to fold. I'm doing another little tiny envelope. Oops, get in there. Oh, you're not in the groove. There we go. There. Up over here. So then I will just fold everything. Try to hold them properly this time, huh? Yeah. So I hope everybody's having fun doing this miniature thing. To me, it's a lot of fun. I may do, like I said, I may do some bigger things that you guys can put in your junk journals. Well, mind you, you can put these in junk journals too, but I may do some other things and add them, but I really wanted to do these first, so, you know, that you guys could see, you know, things that I've done and can do, and, you know, I can do and have pretty much taught myself I can do every craft there is except macrame. Macrame is the one thing that has never ever interested me. I had a sister-in-law once who loved doing it, and I was like, that just looks boring. You know, it just held no interest whatsoever for me. I didn't want to sit there and tie a bunch of knots and, you know, go to my mind. I've done petty point and cross stitch, and I have tons of petty point pictures, but at the moment none of them are hanging up. Mainly because I'm hoping to move out of this place one of these days. I've been here 3 years now. I just, you know, had boxes all in my dining room because you know, when I moved in here I thought, I'm not staying here for long. I don't like the place, and I wasn't comfortable here. Plus I was going through a very traumatic time in my life. Now, you know, like a couple of years ago I was rear-ended by a garbage truck, and that's really screwed up my body big time, as if it wasn't screwed up enough to start with, you know. But my lawyer knows what I expect to get out of this accident, and he's working very hard for me to try and make that happen. And hopefully, you know, once we get that all done and settled, I'll be buying my own house, and or a mobile home even. Double-wide mobile home would be nice too, because they're just like a house. Some of them, my great aunt used to have one. It was absolutely stunning. I just loved it. So I'm, you know, thinking and looking, and, you know, just waiting. It's been, what, 3 years now since the accident, and I don't have a discovery appointment until April 17th, 2019. That's how long they're making me wait. So it's just insane. Yeah. And here is the little note that goes into this one. There. So there's a couple little notes and envelopes and notes and some chocolate chip cookies and a record by the Beatles. And hopefully your dolly has a record player. And here's some seeds that she can plant in her garden. And I hope you all enjoyed this. I mean, I think that's all I'm going to do for right now. I was going to do some of these, but I've forgotten now. So I'm going to have to look them up. But these are like a little matchbook notepad kind of thing. It's just like, you know, like if you're at somebody's house and they're not home, you can have this in your purse and write them a quick little note and telling them you were there or whatever. And there goes my stupid phone again. So anyway, I'm going to leave it right there for now and say have a great day. Don't forget, like I say, creative clutter is better than idle neatness. And I'll see you again. Bye.